Rosecrance is a player in the substance abuse and mental health community. And a lot of that is really due to the legacy that Phil Eaton has created.
I think without Phil Eaton and the vision that he possessed and the board, I don't know that Rosecrance would be in existence today.
The social worker for Rosecrance was leaving to go to grad school, and they were looking to hire a new social worker.
I really believe Phil gets out of bed every morning and has a whole set of new ideas how he can make the Rosecrance organization more effective and better.
Just watching how the organization has grown, how it's gotten into being involved in the mental illness side of the business.
I've often called him the second founder.
He has lots and lots of friends that respect him and call him Mr. Rosecrance sometimes, and he said, "No, that's not my name." He started working there before he graduated from college. There were 14 boys. It was a 24/7 job then, and it still is.
Rosecrance started as an orphanage and really moved into youth services.
And at that time, it was just an incredibly small organization in comparison to what it is today. It's a multi-state operator of facilities.
Phil's leadership became critically important during this rather challenging time in the early 80s. In the early days, I know we had monthly board meetings. Every board meeting had a financial report, and at the conclusion of every financial report, there was always a standard motion that said that we would pay the bills when funds became available. That was a standard motion.
Another quality of Phil's that I always admired was his ability to assess personnel, determine where they best fit in the organization and how he could help them grow.
I was 22 years old when I first started working at Rosecrance. My first week I met Phil Eaton. I made a joke, and in great Phil fashion, he said, "So are we hiring comedians or counselors?" And that's when I knew at that point he was going to be a force to be reckoned with.
It always reminded me of a conductor building a symphony orchestra, one individual at a time to allow the orchestra to perform more complex, larger works, and that's exactly what was happening with Rosecrance. We were building the team.
I remember when Phil and Tom strong-armed me into taking over the foundation chair so Tom could move up to the big board.
I think Phil understood that our society was changing, that the needs of children were changing.
Phil came to the board and said, "Hey, I think we need to make a decision to switch from youth services exclusively to substance use services."
We kind of threw caution to the wind and said, Phil, if you believe that there's a need for this, we will go along with that.
Fast forward now 30 plus years of this vision, and Rosecrance today is a premier behavioral health provider. Substance use and mental health services, nationally known and referred to and respected.
What started as skepticism back in the early 80s now makes Phil look like a genius.
Phil had the vision to build a world-class teen facility to treat substance abuse in Rockford, Illinois.
A lot of change and a lot of growth. It was a very, very dynamic time.
The treatment that the participants received was both at Rosecrance and at Janet Waddell's, our community mental health center. So they had to go to two different places. Janet Waddell's and Rosecrance merged, as we all know, so that the participants in our mental health court had the opportunity of dual diagnosis treatment, something that was done nationally, but that we brought to Rockford because of Phil's efforts.
We can safely say that we have an excellent treatment program in Illinois, in many ways because Phil Eaton helped lead it.
There's Rosecrance, there's NAATP, and there's the national movement and the national environment. And all three of those things have simultaneously grown up together, along with Phil.
He has a sharp business sense, but he has empathy for the people that Rosecrance serves. Those two qualities and the combination of those qualities, honestly, are very rare.
We overheard a conversation at a booth next to a table one time, and she was lamenting the fact that she has tried everything in her life, and the only thing that she hasn't been able to accomplish is to get into Rosecrance for help. And he very quietly stood up and he said, maybe I can help, and he gave her a business card. And she was in treatment within an hour.
He has a sense of humor. He also is self-aware, and many leaders, and I think we kind of know that, are not so self-aware.
I personally believe, some people are fortunate enough to be able to do what they're supposed to do in their calling and what they're very comfortable with and what they're very good at. And fortunately, he was one of those people that landed where he should have.
Some people may not know that Phil worries about every single detail.
Phil Eaton is a gentle leader.
I was terrified of this individual early on in my career.
He's calm, he's stable.
He worries and agonizes.
He's the centered guy.
I credit my gray bald head to Phil Eaton.
Phil always said, I want the place to look good enough that I could let my mother come in and she'd be proud of it.
There are a million Phil Eaton-isms.
He's a very wise person.
I mean, he always does funny stuff all the time, stupid stuff, lame stuff.
Fill the beds, manage drift, shine the bright light.
He really is a good and caring person. And I think he carries that through into his leadership and his work within the organization as well, and his approach to the entire community.
He loves to fish, as you know, and he always sends all the board members big pictures of the fish.
One year we get a record-setting muskie picture that he caught, and it was huge and very impressive.
He has caught these huge fish.
And the second year out comes another picture just like it.
We always tell him, you got another one out of the freezer.
We think he stored the fish.
They are real fish.
Why did you use the same picture twice?
The story about when I started at Rosecrance, we all fit at this table, and the Christmas parties were in the basement of my house, and Sherry cooked for everybody. We make fun of him, that story, but the reality is today, with 1,200 employees over 3 states, that's really more of a testament to his legacy than it is something to make fun of him about.
When I think about Phil retiring, I kind of get a smile on my face. It's hard for me to imagine that Phil will actually retire.
We brought up the R word. It was not well received.
I think he's worked hard. But now it's time to enjoy Sherry and the family.
Going from being as productive and present as Phil has always been for all of us to retirement, I think that's going to be really interesting. We're going to have to keep an eye on him.
He knows 2 flowers, probably a rose and a daisy, and I'm going to see if I can get him more acquainted with the difference between weeds and flowers in all of my gardens.
I think it's an adjustment, and I think he will adjust.
I think he's going to be able to handle it because he's got those North Woods. Those North Woods are inspirational.
I think that he's gotten comfortable with it. It's been a long, very serious process. Everybody's worked very hard at this.
Thank you, Phil, for being my friend, for being my partner, for being an inspiration, and I expect to hear from you very soon.
I've enjoyed my friendship with you. You've done an amazing job with Rosecrance, and I've enjoyed my time.
Thanks, Phil. You made my involvement with Rosecrance one of the best things that's ever happened to me, and we wish you so much success going forward.
Phil, enough already. Go. We get it. You've done enough. Thank you. Goodbye.
Phil Eaton, you are 1 in a million. Thank you.
Thanks, Phil.
Congratulations, Phil. Well done, and thanks for all your support to the community.
LYL, baby.